Hey everyone, welcome to the Mizrahi Perspective, bringing to you raw and fresh Judeo-Arab anarchism. Today we're talking about the meeting between Trump and King Abdullah of Jordan. Um, and I have some things to say about this meeting. As an introduction to what I want to say, let me just state that I have no special empathy or tender sentiments for Arab regimes at all. So I never try to defend them or apologize on their behalf, do apologetics for them, explain what they do. It's not my thing. I I share and understand the criticisms, the deep criticisms of our regimes, because I think if there's one audience I mainly identify with, is it is heartbroken and disillusioned Arabs from anywhere in the Middle East. Basically, I see myself as one of you. I'm a heartbroken, disillusioned, disappointed Arab Jew escaping Zionism. But I know many of you, and I know many Arabs who have escaped or avoided uh, different and other regimes and systems in the Middle East. So it is not my nature to defend regimes and governments, period, wherever they are, whoever they may be, but not Arab regimes as well. This is not what I do. And I'm only saying this because I think that at this moment in history, what could be happening, I think that I'm seeing the reactions to this meeting between Abdullah and Trump, and many people are calling Abdullah names, uh, saying he's a puppet and a traitor, and so on and so on. You know all the terms. You've heard them. Maybe you've written them yourselves or said them. And I get why people say this. And I get why people say this, and not just today. I mean, for since the beginning of this genocide, and for years before that, it was very disappointing the way Arab countries stopped standing for Palestinians and stopped protecting them. Maybe they never did it like fully, but they at least they did it to some extent. And it this we have seen less and less of that, and especially during this genocide, there was almost none of it. We have seen no serious opposition, no forceful reaction to what Israel was doing, and this has been very painful and disappointing uh, to many people in the world. Maybe not even only Arabs, Westerners, and other people as well. Having seen all that and having said that, if you've watched my last couple of videos, you could see I'm being optimistic about this particular moment in time, because I was seeing and I am seeing the beginning of resistance to what the US and Israel are doing. For the time being, it is on a diplomatic level, still kind of softly and gently, but we can definitely see it. And what I've seen today from Abdallah didn't doesn't change this impression. Abdallah didn't cave, he didn't surrender, he didn't give in. He didn't embrace Trump's and Netanyahu's plan for an ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. If this was what they wanted, and it was, they didn't get it from this meeting. And this is very important, because the kind of pressure which was put on Abdullah and on all Arab leaders, and is being put on them, throughout these days, during these days, this pressure is enormous, enormous. But still, we haven't seen a single Arab leader embracing and accepting this plan. We are seeing unanimous rejection of the ethnic cleansing. And I see this as very promising and a very good sign that something is changing and something is different this time. So, yes, Abdullah said he was going to take 2,000 sick Gazan children, which is okay. It is okay. Jordan is allowed to help Palestinian people and Palestinian kids in suffering, in pain, in trouble. But this is not what Trump was after, and this is not what Netanyahu is after. So the kind of public approval, public acceptance of this demonic plan was not given. So we have to make note of it. It is important. So this is missing, and this is big. The other thing that's missing is al-Sisi. Egyptian President al-Sisi was supposed to be in Washington today as well. This is according to reports in Israeli media, which I have been following, and I've been reading today to see how they report things, because this is also important. But his trip was canceled. Al-Sisi didn't make it to Washington, and Egypt keeps rejecting this plan fully and unequivocally. No ethnic cleansing. And Egypt even goes a step beyond that. And as Trump is now threatening to cut off military assistance to Jordan and Egypt, Egyptians are now saying, if this does happen, if the US follows through on this threat and cut off aid to Egypt, then there is no point to the peace agreement with Israel. And this is a huge, huge strategic matter. It is huge. Because if there's no peace agreement between Israel and Egypt, Israel's strategic position in the Middle East changes dramatically. So Egyptians are giving every sign they can to notify the US and the rest of the world and the rest of the Arab countries and their own people, because the Egyptians care about this, that they are not going to accept this. And this is also very important. Again, we have to keep in mind the kind of pressure, okay, that the US is using against them. Every kind of pressure we can imagine. And we have seen what the US is capable of, okay? Any form of intimidation. I mean, publicly they say we're going to cut off aid, but who knows what they say personally, okay? The kind of intimidation and threats they are making personally to Abdullah and al-Sisi and other Arab leaders, what they are going to do to them and their families and so on. And this is why I began by saying I'm not a defender of Arab regimes, but I have to take into considerations when criticizing them the credible threats they are facing. And this is very credible. Now, Trump has tied himself to this plan of ethnic cleansing, and he wants to get it for his owners, because he's owned, okay, by Zionist billionaires. And they're saying no. They are saying no to the full might and full pressure of the US. This is a very encouraging sign. So Abdullah says no, it doesn't give a yes, which means a no, Al-Sisi doesn't come to Washington. We don't know if he canceled his visit, or if the Americans, having understood that he wasn't gonna deliver, said, okay, don't come, stay home. We don't know. Either way, Egypt is out of this. Egypt and Jordan are out of this. This is very important. So I'm not disappointed with this visit at all. I'm not disappointed with this visit at all. At all. What we have seen until now, is a very unified Arab front on this matter. And as I've explained in my previous video, because the US and Israel now demand an open acceptance of Arab inferiority, basically. They are saying to Israel and the US are telling Arab countries, you need to tell the world that we are your kings, your bosses, your masters. You are our slaves. You need to say it. Because this is what it means. Partaking in the Palestinian Holocaust and letting go of Palestine as a political cause means this. Means Arabs have no influence over the agenda, the great agenda, the big agenda of the Middle East. And if they have no influence, it means they have no power and no status. This is what's being demanded of them, and I think that this is why they are saying no. And I think that this is what they will continue to say no. We are seeing no surrender. No surrender. This should make all of us very happy for now, because we would be in a very different reality if Arab leaders said yes to this plan. And it could make them very rich personally. It could do a lot of nice things for them personally, for their close circles, but they are saying no. And we need to see it, because this is so important right now. Now, in Israeli media, they are reporting on what Abdullah is saying and what Al-Sisi not coming to Washington. And the tone they are using is not celebratory. This also tells me that Israel is not satisfied with what's going on. Israel doesn't see a breakthrough that will allow it to accomplish this plan. So this is another good sign. But what Israeli media is saying is they are mobilizing reserve personnel, reserve military people again. They are probably going to renew the genocide the coming weekend, because Trump said if they don't release all the hostages, they're going to regret this and all this yada yada. And I think that this is what Israel is planning. The hostage deal wasn't good for Netanyahu politically. I've said it so many times during the genocide. Netanyahu doesn't want a deal. He prefers the Israeli captives dead, because when they are released, it puts a lot of pressure on him politically. From the Israeli right-wing perspective, this looks like a surrender, because if you still have to negotiate with Hamas, and if you still have to accept their terms after you've been fighting for a year and a half almost, it means you achieved no victory and you haven't defeated Hamas. And they accept this as a huge humiliation. It's really hard for them. They don't want this. And Netanyahu especially doesn't want Israeli captives who have been released to speak to Israeli media or international media and talk about Hamas, their captors, about Hamas as human beings, as people, maybe with some kind of fondness. We've heard this. This is a political disaster. Netanyahu doesn't want it. And I think that this is why they are doing this now. They want to make sure all Israeli captives are dead and won't be released. They want to end this very stupid political movement to free the hostages and cut a deal. It is very stupid because it is not political. It is not, we cannot kill innocent women and children. Okay? It's not, we cannot do genocide. It's not, we have to make a big political compromise with Palestinians. We have to stop occupying and subjugating them. It's not that. It's let's make a deal and get the hostages back home. So, but Netanyahu doesn't want that. So he has to find any excuse to stop the negotiations and go back to the murder. But what's interesting now, Israel is going to renew the genocide with the approval of the US after the Arab world said no to ethnic cleansing, and when the peace agreement between Egypt and Israel is hanging in the balance. And this complicates things for Arab leaders further. And I think this is going to harden their position. It's not going to make them become softer and more pliable to American demands. It's going to make them harder. And I think we are going to hear harsher criticism and maybe even threats at Israel from Egypt and other countries. I anticipate this is the next step. When Israel renews the genocide in Gaza, it's not fighting, it's genocide. Against this backdrop of unified Arab front in opposition to the ethnic cleansing, when Israel renews this mass killing, this extermination, Arab leaders are going to feel like they have no other choice but to take on Israel more openly, and the US. And as Arab leaders are going to meet later this month in Cairo, if I'm not mistaken, they will have to continue with this line, to hold this line of opposition and increase and go a step further. So it's not only no normalization. Saudi Arabia said no normalization, and in the past day or two, we are seeing religious leaders in Saudi Arabia and in Qatar saying very harsh things about normalization in Israel. This is also new, and I expect this to increase. So this is my prediction for the near future. Israel is going to renew the genocide with the approval of the US in the West Bank and in Gaza. And the Arab world, in reaction, is going to sound very hostile to Israel and Zionism, like they haven't done or haven't sounded in a generation at least. And all of this is happening because the US and Israel are now pushing for the end game, for a final remedy. I don't want to say the other word, but a final remedy to the Palestinian problem and the Arab problem. Israel and the US are pushing for complete, openly acknowledged domination of Arabs. And they are not going to get this. Mark my words and remember this. I'm going to continue following this and talk about this further, but I'm saying this, and this is my strong belief and my prediction. They are not going to get Arab compliance. They are going to get an Arab rebellion. what we are going to see is a rebellion. And we are not hearing from other actors, but it doesn't mean that they are absent. Because if the US is threatening Jordan and Egypt with cutting off aid, okay, and which is Egypt has huge economic problems. But I can promise you that China is watching what's going on. And if the US pulls out, okay, stops aiding Egypt and Jordan, it's going to be so easy for China to step in and fill the void. It's going to be very easy for China to spend a billion or two or three or four a year to gain access and influence in the Middle East instead of the US. The US is not playing alone on this field. And the same with Saudi Arabia. The US can make promises to Saudi Arabia to protect them from Iran, but China can actually provide this security because China is very close with Iran. And if there's peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia and a unified front against Israel and close relationship with China, it's a whole different game. And I think that this is where we're going. Because the US and Israel are led by such open psychopaths and idiots who have no respect for other people. This is the reality they're pushing us towards. So I'm saying politically, this is a good time and a good sign, what we're seeing. Sadly and tragically, many Palestinians are still going to pay with their lives because Israel is going to renew this genocide and this push. Israel is going to become even more belligerent, and the US also. So this is the very sad aspect of things and the positive aspect of things. I cannot be anything but terribly sad and broken over what's happening to Gaza, as all of us are. I know, and I'm sure of this. But seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, namely a diminishing American influence and a diminishing, drastically diminished Israeli ability to manipulate, okay, divide and conquer. This is an actual light at the end of this very, very dark tunnel. So this wasn't a bad day in Washington, and we're going to keep following this. And I think that, yes, Arabs are going to become more openly anti-Israel. This is what's going to happen.